This year we're competing in the LMP3 category for the second time. First time for you in the ELMS, but for different teams. Adam in Eurointernational, Daniel RNL M Sport. Have you competed against each other before? And has there always been a sibling rival in the Ali family? Adam, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so back in karting we have competed with each other for quite a number of years before we got into the endurance racing, so it's definitely something that's been familiar to us. So it's definitely not new. There has been some rivalries in the past. We were both quite competitive, obviously, and that's how we kind of got to here. But yeah, no, it's always interesting to compete against your brother, I suppose. It gives you some good competition. You can communicate with the driver that's not really in your team with kind of not some like any bias or anything. So it is quite interesting to have a brother in the field.
Do you fancy racing with him in the future? Because obviously there's up to 3 drivers in the car, so...
It would be quite interesting. It was up for debate for this year as well, so yeah, I would be looking forward to that for sure.
Daniel, same question for you.
Yeah, I mean, just to build off of what he said, we have been racing, especially in karts, for quite a long time, and I think I do look forward to racing against him this year. I think when it comes to sibling rivalries at home, usually at home we don't really compare each other, but especially whenever it comes to anything racing related, whether it's on the sim or whenever we did karting back in the day, then yeah, there's always a bit of a rivalry. I remember our first race that Am and I ever did against each other, my dad and our mechanic told us, whatever you do, do not crash, and on the opening lap, we crashed and I got flown out of my kart because I tried to pass him, so
whose fault was it?
We each have our own, we each have our own opinions on the matter, but...
So Adam, last year, had a good year, vice champion, LMP3 vice champion, that win in Portimao at the last race. How would you sum up that season for you?
I think the best way to sum that up would be unexpected, would be the first thing. In many ways, positive and negative. We obviously were aiming to be the champion, vice champion for that season, but both me and my teammate Matt were rookies at the time, so it was quite unexpected to have that result, especially with the win at the final round of the championship. Unexpected also in the way that we had quite a few unlucky breaks throughout the season as well. You've obviously seen that, like in Aragon, we were leading quite a lot of the race, Spa for the same, and just some unexpected mishaps with the team kind of affected those results. But yeah, overall, it was a great experience, and now that we have one season under our belt and we're quite familiar with each other now, I think it will be a good season for this one.
Daniel, I would think to say I'm pretty fair in saying it wasn't the best season you ever had, but what were the positives you took away from last year?
Yeah, I think it's definitely fair to say that this season for Le Mans Cup was a bit difficult, especially since I need to miss the Asian Le Mans during December, January, February, wherever the race was. But it doesn't mean that there weren't any positives that we got to take out of it. I think Le Mans Cup gave me a really good opportunity to improve my racecraft, especially it's very unique to have an endurance racing championship with 30 of the exact same cars. So throughout every single race, there's always a lot of competing against other drivers and against many, many other teams. So it gave me a really good opportunity to improve upon my racecraft that I've been developing a lot through karting. And also a lot of the tracks I went to during the Le Mans Cup are on the ELMS calendar this year. So it gives me the good opportunity to build upon the foundation that I was working on a lot last year.
I'm going to stay with you because obviously your brother's got the experience, but you haven't, of these LMP2 cars, and this year we've got a lot more of them. How are you approaching the difficulties about traffic during the race?
I think going into the season, I expected it to be a bit more difficult to manage with the LMP2s, but so far I found it not too bad. I was able to do a LMP2 test, or not an LMP2 test, but I was able to do an LMP3 test at Imola with the LMP2 cars and also the WEC hypercars as well. And I was able to find it a lot easier than I thought to manage around them. So I don't think it'll be too much of a challenge for the race, but I think it is a bit of a change in what I'm used to, since in the Le Mans Cup I was very used to being in the highest category for the racing cars, whereas the LMP3 and the GTs, but now I have another category that's above me, which is the LMP2s and the P2 Pro-Ams, so I'll definitely need to use my mirrors a bit more throughout the race.
I'm going to say, Adam, you had last year with the amputees. This year we've got 5 or 6 more. Again, it's going to be a huge challenge because you're faster than the GT3 cars, but obviously you've got 22 LMP2 cars to contend with as well. What advice would you give your brother coming into this thing? And don't say I won't give him advice because he's a rival, another thing. But what would you give him as an advice as a brother?
Yeah, I mean, it's just using your mirrors and being vigilant about the drivers, right? It's obviously quite different when you have to be looking in your mirrors and also ahead when you have traffic. So I think it seems like he's gotten quite used to it through the prologue. We obviously had quite a bit of track time with them. And it seems like he's doing quite well. But yeah, I think he just needs to keep up what he's doing and it should be all right.
So you're racing with Matt again this year, so that's a consistency with the same team as well. So there's and you were the only 2 driver crew on the grid as well. What was the thinking behind having a two driver crew rather than a 3 driver crew like everybody else? And do you think that will give you an advantage?
Yeah, so the general idea of the whole situation was when we signed our contracts for Eurointernational again, we just got along quite well throughout the season and there didn't really seem to be a reason to add a 3rd driver to the lineup. We obviously had quite a functional team at the end of last year, so we thought why not just keep going with the same idea. It does have some advantages for sure. Obviously, a lot of the teams you have to be doing pit stops and doing driver changes and all that. So especially if you had to do a quick driver change, having only 2 drivers and not having to do a 3rd one, obviously is quite efficient. So there are definitely some advantages, not to mention some extra driver time for me in the car compared to having 2 silvers. So yeah, I think overall it was a good decision from the team and I'm happy to see how it goes for the season.
So looking ahead to this weekend, what do you think of this track?
I like it. It's definitely one of the more unique tracks on the calendar. Tire deck is quite bizarre here. The tires go away quite quickly, so I think tire management is going to be quite crucial. But no, I enjoy it. Traffic is quite complex here, so it definitely helps the more competitive drivers and the more aggressive ones, so that definitely works well for me. But yeah, no, it's a great track. I love the circuit. It was one of the first ones I did testing in the P3 with, so I'm quite comfortable here.
And Daniel, how are you getting on with your new team and your new teammates?
So far, I'm getting along with them quite well. I've known James for a little while now, but Bailey's definitely a new face to me. And overall, I think we've already gotten quite used to each other. We've already gotten quite used to the team, given that we were able to test in Portimao and at Barcelona not too long ago. So I think we have a really strong team to go and attack the championship with. I think the most important thing as well is I think we all trust each other. We know that we're capable of achieving a lot of really good things this year, and we all have a lot of trust in each other, for the drivers and the mechanics for the drivers. So I do think it'll be a really fun season this year with all of us.